Hey there. Welcome to Mike's Collection, episode 363. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is just a couple of random things. I've got just a couple of toys that I want to talk to you about, and then I'm actually going to talk about some comic books. So if you happen to be a fan of both, like I am, hopefully you'll stick around for the comic book talk as well. So as far as toys go, I'm just going to cover a couple of odds and ends, which I don't have too many of because I just recently did kind of a miscellaneous episode where I kind of review all my odds and ends that don't fit into a full video. I do actually have quite a few DC figures, DC Superpowers figures that I want to talk about. I've got some Transformers, some Marvel Legends. So I've got lots of things that I want to do full videos on those topics. But I have acquired just a couple of things since I last spoke to you guys. So we're going to take a look at those. So before I do, though, I do just want to quickly talk about Transformers for a second, just because I'm just ever so slightly annoyed right now. If you've watched my channel regularly at all, you might know that I collect Transformers. I've got a lot of them. You can just see a fraction of them here, but I have a lot of Transformers. My favorite Transformer, or at the very least my favorite Autobot, has always been Gears. He was just a little teeny red and blue truck that I loved that toy so much as a kid. So it's not so much that the character in the cartoons or the comic books won me over. I just loved that little toy so much that it just kind of translated as, he became my favorite Autobot. When I got rid of all my Transformer toys in my early teens, he was like the only Autobot that I held on to. Gears was my favorite, so I kept Gears. And since I've been collecting modern Transformers, I've been waiting a really long time to get a good update of Gears. And it took them so long for Hasbro to release a new good Gears figure, because they did put out a bad one or two, that I ended up buying a couple of third-party versions of Gears, which are like unofficial versions. And they've been pretty cool. Do I have any easily accessible? I don't. But anyway, just last year, Hasbro put out this Gears figure, which I thought was great. It's still small, it's still cute, but it's still much bigger and much more articulated, more detailed than the one I had as a kid. I loved this figure. I thought it was a great update. Really, really like it. Now, the thing is, in the comic books and the cartoons, Gears had a human-like face with a nose and a mouth. But the toy that I loved so much as a kid, it didn't have a nose and a mouth. It had kind of more like a Optimus Prime type of face, where it just had like a shield over his mouth and nose. So I'm a little, if I had to pick one over the other, I think I kind of like the face shield. It looks cool as well as looking cute. I like that he looks more like a robot and less human. I think that's partly all what I liked about him back then. But I have really grown to like the human face anyway. So I was fine with the fact that this one had the more human-like face. Some of the third-party versions I had either had a head you could turn and display it with either style of face. One of them had swappable face plates, so you could display it either way. So that was pretty cool. So as great as this figure was, if I did have one bad thing to say about it, it was that it didn't have the faceplate. Anyway, not long after this figure was released, Hasbro announced that there was going to be a Walmart exclusive re-release of this figure in slightly different colors and with the face shield face. And I thought, you know what? I like this figure so much, I don't mind spending another $35 to get another one so I can have them both. I wouldn't do that with every character, just for kind of a slight change. But for Gears, I was absolutely willing to do it. So I pre-ordered this guy from Walmart. Keep in mind, that's the only place you could get it. This was, I don't know, I want to say October 2024, and it was supposed to be released, I believe, in January 2025. And then January 2025 came and went, And I got an email saying this figure has been delayed and they couldn't give me a new date. And I was like, okay, whatever. I'll just have to wait. What choice do I have? But then a couple of weeks later, I was on Walmart's website and they had the figure in stock. And it said, order now and it'll be in your house in like 2 to 3 days. And I was like, you know what? I don't know what happened to my pre-order. It might have got lost in the mail somewhere. So even though it could show up eventually, I don't want to keep waiting on it. So I will order another figure. I'll get that one. I'll have it in a couple of days, and I'll just return the other one if it ever shows up. So I ordered the second one. But then 2 or 3 days passed, and then my status went from arriving tomorrow to this figure has been delayed indefinitely. We can't give you a date. So now I had 2 outstanding pre-orders on the new figure. Very frustrated. I think I did get a couple emails to tell me the date had changed, but then those dates again came and went. And then Hasbro put up some of the figure for sale on their website. So I still can't get it anywhere else, like Amazon or GameStop. So I was like really tempted to order it from Hasbro because I didn't know if my 2 from Walmart would ever show up. But I didn't want to order it from Hasbro and pay more money for it because I have to pay shipping. And at this point, I might even have to pay tariff fees. So I didn't really want to overpay for it because I couldn't return it back to Hasbro when all was said and done. So I contacted Walmart, and that was a bit of a pain in the ass too to actually get somebody on the phone. And they told me, yes, we can't give you a date, but it is coming. And I said, okay, can you cancel one of the 2 orders? And they did. So I'm still expecting one of the gears to show up eventually. Anyway, about an hour ago, I was in Walmart and I found 2 of them sitting on the pegs in my local Walmart. So I grabbed one. I don't know. I could still get 1 in the mail. I could still get 2 in the mail for all I know. But it's very annoying to walk into a store and find a toy hanging there that I pre-ordered back in October. And the whole reason I pre-ordered it is because I wanted it as soon as it came out. This is my favorite guy. I wanted it sooner than later. And it's been a long process. I'm glad I finally got him. I am going to open him up and review him, but not today, not on this episode, because I have a couple other Transformers that I recently acquired. This guy just came in the mail recently. So yeah, I want to do all my Transformers together. And the reason I'm not doing that right now is because I have another Transformer arriving in like 3 days. So stay tuned. I'll do a Transformer episode soon where I'll talk about this guy in more detail. I just kind of wanted to vent my frustrations a little bit. To find this guy in the wild was just like, are you kidding me? Anyway, I'm happy I got him. So great. Now, as I sit down to film this, it's like the first week of May. May 1st was my wedding anniversary. It was my 6-year wedding anniversary. And if you follow the traditional gift-giving protocols, the 6th anniversary is the iron anniversary. So I really struggled to find an iron gift for my wife. I was looking for maybe some sort of cast iron sculpture or something because she likes funky little displays and ornaments around the house. I found something that I thought she would like, and she did, but it ended up not being iron. It was resin. So whatever. So I got her a little sculpture, and I also got her some wine and candies and things like that. I fully expected her to buy me an Iron Man something. Whether it was an Iron Man Marvel Legend, an Iron Man graphic novel, I just kind of figured that was a pretty safe bet. However, not only did she get me some beers and some candy, which was great, she got me, to my surprise, the Iron Giant. Now, this is the Super Cyborg version from Super 7. Now, I don't want to say I'm not familiar with the Super Cyborg line because I know what it is, but I don't have any, and I wasn't really planning on getting any, even though I think they look cool, because it's based on like an older toy line where you could open up the chest and stuff of a robot and see the inner workings. And Super 7 has kind of taken that and run with it and added it to a bunch of modern lines. Like they've done some Transformers, like Optimus Prime in the Super Cyborg style. They've done the Battle Android Trooper from G.I. Joe. So they've done some other cool things like that, including the Iron Giant. Now, I love the Iron Giant. The movie is great, and I just love the design of the character. If you've never seen the animated movie, The Iron Giant, I highly recommend it. If you've seen the Bumblebee live action movie, it's very similar. It borrows a lot of plot points, but this one's way better. So check it out. Anyway, when this movie first came out back in '99, I really wanted a toy of him, but they were nowhere to be found. I didn't even know at the time, but they did make some toys. But my area, I live in the eastern coast of Canada. We don't have KB toys and we don't have Targets. So my options are a little limited. I've never seen a Iron Giant toy. So I didn't even know they existed. But when the VHS movie came out, it came shrunk wrapped with a little 3 3/4 inch Iron Giant figure attached to the movie. So I got that little figure. And for, you know, 20 years or so, that was the only Iron Giant I had. And it was cool. Like it looked great for a small figure. But what kind of a bummer in that over the 20 years that I had that figure, he had yellowed. So the gray is now this kind of, it's a pretty ugly yellowy gray color, which was a bit of a bummer. But then Super 7, same guys that made this, they made some reaction figures, which is their own line of 3 3/4 inch figures. So I got the reaction figure of the Iron Giant a while back. I actually bought two of them. There were three different variations. I bought the standard version and I bought the like battle ready version, which has his chest and his arms all opened up with all of his guns exposed. So yeah, these guys were pretty cool. And I was very happy to get this figure. It was basically the same figure I already had, but now the colors were nice and crisp again. But then, around the same time, I think it was Diamond Select Toys put out this Iron Giant. Now this guy is bigger, quite a bit bigger than the reaction figure. And he's way more articulated. So he's got knees and elbows. He had swappable parts. He's got the little boy who's his like sidekick in the movie, Hogarth. He comes with a little Hogarth that can sit on his shoulder. He's got this Superman S, which is removable. You can put that on his chest. His eyes light up, if I remember correctly. Do they still work? Yep, the eyes still light up. He's got an articulated jaw, which is cool, so you can like move his mouth and everything. This is a great figure. And when I got this, I kind of thought, I'll never need another Iron Giant. This is really, really cool. But then they released this figure again in a metallic silver, and I thought, ooh, man, that's really cool. I was tempted to get that one. My friend Chad got it, but I didn't. I didn't pull the trigger. I didn't get another one. So anyway, even though this one's great, and this one kind of scratched the itch, this guy is still pretty awesome because there's just something about the size of this guy. He's not significantly bigger, but he's big enough to know the difference. The colors are a little different. This guy's a little darker gray, which I like. The sculpt is nice and detailed. He lacks articulation, but that's because that's the style of the Super Cyborg figures. So he has no knees, he has no elbows. That doesn't bother me too much. Probably the joint that I miss the most is his head, because so his jaw is articulated, but his head can't move like up or down at all. I think it would really benefit him if he could ball joint his neck there. But anyway, he looks great. And the kind of the play feature of this is that you can take all of his armor off. So you can see I can take the front of his legs off there. And then you can see the inner workings of his legs. Same thing with his hands or his arms. So you can open up his forearms and you can see the kind of the guns that I mentioned. In the movie, his arms transform into guns. So here you can kind of see the components of the guns tucked up inside. And coolest of all is his chest opens up. So you can see all the inner workings inside his chest. So that's all very cool. And he also came with his own little Hogarth, the little kid that can stand on his shoulder or go in his hand. Now, I do wish that Hogarth had a little maybe peg, like a little hole on his foot, and maybe there was a little peg on the shoulder so you could place him there. Because otherwise, you just kind of can lean him there. Same as his hand doesn't really grip, so you can't hold him very tightly. I wish there was a way to attach Hogarth to him in a little bit more of a stable way. But anyway, this is great. I thought it was a great gift from my wife. It was very thoughtful. She even told me that she went to my old toy blog that I used to do to look up to see if I had an Iron Giant toy. But back then, I only had the little yellowed one. So she read my blog post and she said, it was so sad because I know how much you love the Iron Giant. And your blog post, you talked about how you only had this kind of sad little figure and he had yellowed over time. And as she was telling me this, I actually felt kind of bad because I was thinking like, oh, she doesn't realize I have this one downstairs. Someday she's going to go down, look in the glass cabinet and say like, oh, I didn't know you had another Iron Giant. And I didn't want to mention it to her. But then later she did say that I went on your YouTube channel and I also searched Iron Giant to see if you had any. And I did see that you got a better one later, but you were still raving about how much you loved the character. So she thought it was a safe bet to get me this one here. And it was. Even though I wasn't necessarily seeking this one out on my own, it was only because I was trying to show a little bit of restraint and say, I do have a pretty cool Iron Giant in my collection now. Do I really want to shell out the money for this one? Because these guys aren't cheap. Off the top of my head, I don't know. I don't think they're over $100, but they're more than 50. So yeah, they're not cheap. And anyway, it was very cool that she got me this, and it was a huge surprise. I was expecting Iron Man. I got Iron Giant. I love it. So yeah, my wife is awesome. And there you go. So that's all I really have to say about this guy. Now, not only is my wife awesome, but so are my friends. So some other new toys I have to show you are from one of my pals. Bought me these as a gift for no real reason. But anyway, one of my best friends for, it's hard to believe, but it's been almost 20 years now, which part of the reason that seems weird to say is because he's not like a childhood friend. I didn't meet him until I was almost 30. I was in my late 20s, but now I'm in my late 40s. So it is bizarre for somebody that I met so late into adulthood and now I've known him for 20 years. It makes me feel old. And I guess I am old. But anyway, Miguel, I've known him for like 20 years almost, and he's from Mexico. And every time he goes home to visit Mexico, he brings me back some silly bootleg Mexican toy. And I get a huge kick out of these things. So I always tell him the weirder the better. If you can find me some like Ninja Turtle painted yellow or some pink Chewbacca, because those sort of things exist down there. These really cheap knockoff figures. So he's always on the lookout for these things, and he's brought me back some pretty silly toys in the past. In fact, I've done a whole episode called Mexican Bootleg Toys. If you want to take a closer look at them, go look that up on my channel. Anyway, he was just in Mexico, and he brought me back another package of toys. Now, I don't know what he paid for these. I'm going to guess a couple of bucks at most. These things are definitely kind of like dollar store quality figures. They come in a cellophane like bag with, sometimes when I get these figures back in a bag, there's like a little piece of cardboard along the top with some staples, and it might say something like superheroes or, mega hero or something cheesy. And then there's sometimes a piece of cardboard backing, but you can tell it's just cut from like a cereal box or something because there's like fine print or ads or something on the back of this cardboard. Anyway, this particular bag had none of that. It was just a little plastic bag, no markings on it, didn't say what the toy was or what it was supposed to be. Anyway, it was a pack of Godzilla figures based on the legendary MonsterVerse Godzilla movies. So these were pretty fun because he's got me superheroes in the past. I've got a few Batmans. He got me some He-Man figures one time, which were pretty great. He got me a Ninja Turtle. So anyway, these guys here, I'll start with this guy here. Now, at a glance, you might think, is that Mechagodzilla? Because he is this kind of reflective silver Godzilla. But nope, this is Godzilla. It is supposed to be the Godzilla evolved form from Godzilla X Kong, where Godzilla evolves and he gets these pink spines down his back, and he becomes a lot thinner and sleeker. Now, this design is not based on the evolved body, I don't think, in any way, because he's definitely not sleeker. He's still pretty chunky. But the fact that they painted the spines pink definitely denotes that this is supposed to be the evolved version of Godzilla. So, yeah, this guy's pretty fun. And he does have a little hole in his mouth, and he came with a blast effect, which is pretty cool because a lot of the Godzillas I buy, like the ones from Super 7, cost a lot more than this guy, and they don't give me a blast effect. So the fact that this Mexican knockoff comes with a removable blast effect, that says something. Super 7, I think you could maybe consider adding these with your figures going forward. Yeah, so he's pretty cool. And then next up, I guess I'll talk about the other star of the show. It's King Kong. Now, this one, it also looks pretty cheap and it's very simple. But I actually really like this one. Like the paint on this one isn't as out of whack. Like on this Godzilla, the paint around the eyes don't really fill in the eyes. It's kind of splotched all around them. And I should mention, they actually have some articulation. This guy's arms move up and down. That's it, just his arms. Anyway, with Kong, same thing. So he's got his arms articulated. You can lift them up. He's holding his axe in one hand. But yeah, I put this on Instagram, and somebody commented that it looks like King Kong from The Simpsons. And once I read that comment, I totally see it. Like, it's just something the way his eyes are painted and his heavy brow. It looks very Simpsons-esque. So this guy is really cool. He looks good. But most interesting about this figure, if you look on the back, he has this weird little, like, kind of smushy clear spot. And this is the same kind of thing I found on the Ninja Turtle figure that Miguel brought me one time. But if you press the button on the back, he lights up into like this kind of disco rave. So it's like red, blue, and green lights. And depending on how many times I press the button, it kind of alternates how he lights up. So it's pretty weird. I don't know why either Michelangelo or King Kong should light up from the inside, but that's exactly the type of Mexican weirdness that I love. So this guy is probably my favorite. Actually, I'd say he's very much my favorite from the pack. Very, very cool. And then we actually do have a Mecha Godzilla in here. So this is based on his design from the modern movies, and it's a pretty good looking figure. His arms move as well. If anything, he seems like maybe a little too hunched. I think maybe he should be standing a little bit more upright, but whatever. It's a minor gripe. It's, the sculpt's not bad. The face paint is, again, pretty bad. The paint for the eyes just kind of is all around the eyes. It's, not very fine-tuned. So, anyway, it's cool. Like, I'm impressed they've got the multiple layers of individually sculpted spines and all that sort of stuff. It's got a nice metallic paint, but that's the thing, he's not that different in color from Godzilla, which I find kind of strange. Because Godzilla was in no way silver. He's darkish gray, and then he goes to a bit more of a green. I don't know. I just thought it was an odd choice for the Godzilla. Anyway, the other two guys in the pack are the Skull Crawler. Now, this guy has no articulation, so he's very basic. I actually think the sculpt on this guy is probably the worst. Like, it's the least film accurate. Like, the design is proper because he's just two arms and a tail, which is what the Skull Crawlers were, but the heads were more skull-like. This guy just looks like an alligator. So, yeah, he's fine. The cool thing about this guy is I actually don't have a Skull Crawler in my collection in any way, shape, or form. I've got lots of Godzillas, King Kongs, and Mecha Godzillas in my collection. I don't have a Skull Crawler, so this is my one and only Skull Crawler. So, pretty cool. And the same is true of the, I think, Hellbat. Is that what we call this guy? The Hellbat. So this is basically a cobra, except instead of a hood, he's got like bat wings and he can fly through the air. So yeah, Godzilla and Kong. I think it's mostly Kong fights these guys, and I don't know if they appeared in both movies or just the first Godzilla versus Kong. But anyway, they're kind of cool. This one also looks to be a little off as far as screen accuracy goes. He looks like a snake with bat wings, whereas the Hellbat, it wasn't just a snake with bat wings on its head. It was a little bit more of a unique monster, and it doesn't look like they put much effort into matching that. They probably took an existing snake toy they had and sculpted these wings on it without actually creating a new sculpt for this character. So anyway, yeah, those are the new toys I wanted to show you, and that's pretty good. I came in at just under a half an hour here, which is good because I usually try and shoot for about an hour with any one of these episodes. And if you watched my last episode, I had a guest star join me, my friend Scott. It was his first time on the show. He's a guy that I met through doing this show. And yeah, he's a cool guy, lives in my area. And he came on and we talked toys, and that was great. And we actually talked a little bit longer than I anticipated because I was actually looking forward to talking to him about comic books. I am a big comic book collector, and after I read my new stack of comic books every week, I'm always kind of like dying to talk about them and be like, can you believe this happened? Or this sucks. I want to complain about it. But I don't have anybody to talk to or complain to. So usually what I have to do is I just kind of go online and I read message boards and I watch video reviews to see what other people think of the comic books I read. Anyway, Scott just recently got into comic book collecting, and I know he started reading some titles that I read, such as Spider-Man. So when he came on the show to talk toys, I said, hey, can we talk comic books a little bit too? And we ended up talking for a whole extra half hour about comics. And when I was editing that episode, I realized this is too long. I think I'm going to chop the comic book part off and tag it onto the end of another video. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So before I throw to the footage with Scott, I just want to quickly mention that when I started this channel 6 years ago or so, my intent was to talk about toys, to talk about movies, and to talk about comic books, all the kind of things that I'm interested in. But I found I wasn't getting a whole lot of engagement. Nobody was really asking or talking about the movies or the comic books. People seem more interested in the toys. So I kind of phased that other stuff out. We very occasionally I'll talk about a movie or something that I've seen, but not too often. Anyway, back then I created a couple little title cards to break up the segments of the show. So when I used to talk about movies, I called it Flick Chat, and when I talked about comic books, I called it Comic Booking. Now, if you've been with my channel since the beginning, which there's maybe one or two of you that have, you might remember these. Or if you're somebody that's discovered me later, if you go back and watch some of my very earliest episodes, you'll see these sections. They only appeared a couple of times. But anyway, I'm going to go back to doing a comic booking section with my friend Scott. And here, maybe I'll just throw in, just for old time's sake, I'm going to do a quick Flick Chat.
Flick Chat.
So this past weekend, I saw the new Thunderbolts movie, and I liked it quite a bit. So I would recommend you go see it. So there you go. That's Flick Chat.
Flick Chat.
Okay, and now we're going to go to our comic book segment. So this here is comic booking.
Comic booking.
So I'm here again with Scott.
I'm Scott.
This is a leftover segment from our previous episode. We talked too long about toys, but we want to talk about comic books. So you just recently got into comic books, like what, 6 months ago?
Not even that. The comic books have only been maybe like the last 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
And they're coming fast and furious now.
And we talked last episode that you were into toys as a kid, and then you just recently got back into it. Were you into comic books ever as a kid or two, or was this brand new to you?
I was, but I rarely read them. So I would
Okay.
often go to the store. So I used to go camping quite a bit in Kentville, and there was a secondhand shop there, and they always had tons of used comics.
Yeah.
And they're like a quarter.
Right.
So I'd see a cool cover, or I'd see like a superhero or somebody I recognized. I said, I want that. get like a bunch of them for like $3, and then I would come home and I kind of thumb through them, but I never really read them.
Yeah.
But I would appreciate like the artwork and everything like that. And then they would just sit on my shelf until I eventually sold them at a yard sale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
A
right.
lot different now.
What were you buying back then? Who were the superheroes that appealed to you?
It was pretty random. So there was a lot of Superman. I loved the look of Superman. There was a lot of Spider-Man, but then it was like Ren and Stimpy.
Yep.
There's a bunch that I can't even remember like, who they were. But if the cover looked cool to me, then I wanted it. Didn't care who the character was, what the story was about, whether it was for like babies or if it was a more mature thing. It was just if the cover caught my eye, I wanted it.
Yep. And nowadays the cover, because back in the old days the covers, it was a little easier to keep up with because there wasn't so many variants. But now it's brutal.
Yeah,
like,
I figured that out recently.
Yeah. And so you got to be careful because if you're going to be a completist, like, and there's 20 covers to every issue that you buy, and yeah, the comics they're like $7 a pop.
Yeah, that was also news to me. It's not a lot different than the quarter that I spent as a child.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's crazy because I sometimes forget that too. Like, they have the American price on them that says like $4.99, and then my comic shop does what it does. It doesn't. I don't get a receipt. They just do it all on a calculator at Strange Adventures. Yeah. So it's like first they're doing the conversion, so it's like 1 times 1.4 to get the Canadian price, and then they got to put the 1.15 tax on it. And I don't know now if we're getting tariffed on top of that another 10%. I don't know, but like I'm always surprised when they give me my total. I'm like, geez.
Yeah.
So it's not a cheap hobby.
No, not at all. I know this weekend I got a few things to pick up. I think they're going to be in this weekend anyways, and I'm not looking forward to that bill. But I'm looking forward to the comics. So I try to forget about the price and just enjoy what I get. Now, I'm not a completist, so I'm not trying to collect all the different covers, but
me neither.
I do like to see what ones are available and then pick my favorites. So I'm starting to get a little bit more picky with that. Where before I just didn't care. I was like, oh, I need number 3. That's number 3. I'll take it.
Yeah. Sometimes though, and you maybe you've seen this too, but like a comic comes out and there's like 5 different covers for you to choose from, but then there's also retailer incentive covers. So the comic shop gets one of this cover for every 25 of the standard they buy. So then the comic shop tend to mark those ones up. So if you want that cover, you end up paying even more than the initial cover price. And then they have the one for 100, and so they have some crazy number in it. Like, it gets ridiculous. I always feel bad for the guys that have to write the price guides because it's just it would be a shit show.
Yeah.
But don't get me started on the numbering. Like, I know you're new to it, and it's a good jumping on point for somebody like you because it entices you to like, oh, there's a new Ninja Turtles number 1. Yeah. And now I don't know if you realized when you got on board with it, but like it wasn't really a fresh start. It was continuing from the previous 150 issues. So there is a lot of history that now I think you're planning on going back and trying to.
I have a strategy for those now to not break me all at once. So I already ordered the graphic novel for issues. I think it might be like 1 to 12, and there might be like 1 or 2 specials in there as well. And then so when I go to pick that up, I'm going to order number 2, and then I think there's 18 graphic novels right now for the Ninja Turtle line I'm trying to get caught up on. Because when I was like, I didn't know. I don't want to give you spoilers or anything away, but I'm sure if you're watching this, people probably realize something bad happened to Shredder at some point during the series, which I didn't think as a kid. I was like, oh, he's there forever, just like everybody else is there forever. Yep. And they just start reading, and I'm like, who are some of these people? And then they kind of let some information slip in here. I'm like, oh, I need to go back and find these now. Yeah. So it's a jumping off point, but not really if you want to really understand and appreciate the storytelling that's going on.
And like I've been collecting nonstop since I was 8 years old. And there was a matter of pride to say I had every issue of this comic book, and then they stop it, and then they renumber it with a new number 1 like the next month, and then it feels like is this the same thing or a different thing?
Another number 1.
And then what Marvel and DC to some extent has done is now they go back to the original numbering and they call it legacy numbering. A lot of Marvel comic books now have literally 2 numbers on them. Okay, so it's like issue 4, but it's also issue 980 like at the same time, and it's a mess. Again, to be a guy writing the price guide I think it would be a nightmare.
Yeah, I believe it.
But yeah. So Ninja Turtles,
Ninja Turtles,
you're
yeah.
collecting, which we could talk a lot of Ninja Turtles because
Yeah.
I collected that whole run of IDW Ninja Turtles. I jumped off somewhere, I think around like 115,
Okay.
and I think it went to like 150.
Yeah, I think so.
So I'm missing the tail end of that run. But yeah, as far as all that history that you're trying to learn, we could get into that.
Yeah.
But you're also buying. Are you buying the whole Nacelle universe or just some of it?
Well, I have the plan was just the biker mice,
Right.
but there was an ACell issue 0, which included all the rebranding.
The Great Garloo and
and he's like the main character for number 0.
Okay.
So and then he kind of visits all the other characters as he's trying to find a home.
Right.
So I got that one because the biker mice started there. So like, okay, I better get that just in case there's something in there that I need to know for number 1. And then a friend of mine, Luke Conrad, he has a company called Cartoon Conrad Productions, and he's
shout out Cartoon Conrad,
and he's involved with RoboForce, the remake of that with like the Rocks bringing it back,
and that's like on Tubi, isn't it?
Yeah. So right now I think it's only on the American Tubi.
Okay.
But I think he said it is coming to the Canadian Tubi. So I wanted to support him. So I wanted to watch his show. So I was like, oh, I'll get these comics as well, so I can kind of understand that a bit better. I do remember RoboForce. Like I remember the toys. I don't remember ever seeing the show when I was younger, but I do remember the toys. They stood out. So I was like, okay, I'll get that. And then so now I have 2 of them plus number 0, and I did quite enjoy the Great Garloo's story.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, well, I might as well just go get the other one. So it's probably going to end up happening. I'm probably going to get.
What else is the Cowboys of Moo Mesa? Is that
and there's like Insectors or something like that.
Insectors.
Yeah, and there's another one something with powers. Can't remember what it's called now.
Yeah, I don't. None of that stuff was really on my radar as a kid.
Yeah,
like I remember RoboForce toys. I don't know if there even was a cartoon when we were kids. I guess there was. I don't know.
I don't know if there was or not. I'm assuming there was.
Yeah, like Sectors, I don't think ever had a cartoon. They were a toy line, and there was a Marvel comic book. But yeah, so some of those, there's so many little brands that like popped up for just only a handful of figures, and then they just went away again. So yeah, I don't have any ties to those Nacelle stuff, but it's cool to see somebody bringing them back. It's nice to see these old brands.
And they're I think they're only like 3 issues for each one, because I believe, my understanding is they brought back the toys, they had the comic books, and I think each of them are having either like a movie or a show rebirth. So I think this was kind of like the building steps to get people interested before the shows came out. Because like I know like Biker Mice have, I think it might be a movie coming out.
That's cool.
And so I have just the RoboForce and Biker Mice, and then issue 0 from Nacelle Universe.
Okay. Yeah. So the main thing that prompted me to want to talk to you about comic books is my buddy Chad. He buys a bunch of the same comic books as me, and I always want to talk to him about them. But he's so far behind on his reading, so he's kind of got them piling up. So I always want to say, what did you think of that new issue of Transformers? And he's like, oh, I'm 6 months behind on my reading. So it's hard for me. I have this pent up, I want to talk comic books. Even my brother collects some of the same comic books as me too, but he literally reads them and forgets about them. So I'll see him like a week later. I'm like, so what did you think of what happened in Spider-Man? And he's like, remind me. I don't remember. So yeah, he doesn't get as fired up about it as I do. But I saw this past week that you decided to pick up the new Spider-Man #1.
Yeah.
And you also picked up Spider-Man versus Predator #1.
Yes.
So have you had a chance to read Spider-Man 1 and 2 and Predator?
I have, yes. Yeah.
All right. So is this your first time delving into Spider-Man comic books, essentially?
Yes. So I wasn't much into Spider-Man as a kid. But then I started getting back into video games as well over the last few years, and I really enjoyed the Spider-Man video games for PlayStation. And then I watched some of the movies, and then Disney just came out with that new Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man animation.
Right, which I haven't watched that yet.
I watched that, and I really enjoyed it. So then I saw there was a comic book series for that, so I got those. And then I just saw that there was a new Amazing Spider-Man series starting.
Yep.
And So I picked up those, and then I just saw the Predator one there. And said, "Well, that's also a number one. I'll grab that and start as well."
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
A good jumping on point for Amazing Spider-Man, the flagship title. Now, I don't know if it would have had the legacy numbering on it, I'm pretty sure. So it probably says issue 1, and then it probably says issue like 900 and something below it.
I can't remember.
Because this is a way for them to milk, because when it gets to say issue 25, they'll say this is an anniversary issue, it's a double-sized issue, and they'll charge you twice as much. Okay. But meanwhile, on issue 17, they'll say this is issue 1000. Oh. And like, so they double dip.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's kind of bullshit that way. But so I've been reading Spider-Man, like I said, non-stop since I was 8 years old. I have thousands and thousands of Spider-Man comic books. So I'm coming at this new number one from obviously a different spot than you are. So I'm curious, for you checking it out, what did it get you excited? Does it seem too convoluted? Is it welcoming? Did you enjoy it? What do you think?
So I did enjoy it.
Okay.
Yeah. I was like, I feel like there's stuff that I'm definitely missing. There's some characters that I'm familiar with for like seeing them, but I don't really know their stories.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the Amazing Spider-Man,
we can spoil these. This is weeks old by then. Yeah.
Though there's Itsy Bitsy must be the character. So I'm not familiar with Itsy Bitsy.
Me neither, to be honest. Like, so that character, the guy that's writing Spider-Man now, so this is his first time being the main writer on the Spider-Man book, but he had previously written the Spider-Man Deadpool book. Okay. So this guy, Joe Kelly, he's done lots of stuff. He's been around for a long time, but the hit Deadpool comic books, he's the guy, arguably, that made Deadpool the phenomenon that he is.
Okay.
The guy that created Deadpool, Rob Liefeld, would strongly disagree with that.
Yeah.
But I was collecting comic books when Deadpool was introduced. Sure, he looked cool, but he was kind of a knockoff Spider-Man. Sure, he was kind of the merc with a mouth. He was talky, but he wasn't particularly engaging. He didn't have any backstory that we knew about. Because when Joe Kelly came on the book, he's the guy that created all that stuff with like Blind Al and stuff that they do in the movies and stuff, and gave him a real personality and made him actually funny and made him like kind of break the fourth wall and all this sort of stuff. That all came from him. And so then they did a comic book a couple years ago called Spider-Man and Deadpool, and they were just like a team book. And it was in that book they introduced Itsy Bitsy. Okay. And I didn't read that series just because Deadpool was a little played out for me by this point in time. So yeah, seeing Itsy Bitsy come back, I don't think any other writer other than Joe Kelly would have brought that character back, because it's kind of I would say not memorable character. Nobody really cares, but it's just for him, it's his creation. So of course he wants to dip back into that. And who knows, maybe the character will end up being something cool. Yeah. But for me, it was to find out, because there's like a mystery character in issue 1. You don't know who the Hobgoblin is talking to. Yeah. And then it's a last page reveal on page of issue 2. It's Itsy Bitsy. Yeah. And I bet probably 90% of Spider-Man readers were like, who?
Right. So, now for me, I was excited because I was like, who is this?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I don't know what to expect from this. Is this going to be like a psychotic character that I'm going to be interested in, or is it going to be a flop?
It's supposedly like a mixture of Spider-Man and Deadpool. So I imagine it's probably going to be an obnoxious character. It looks like it has Spider-Man's powers because it's got like extra arms and stuff. Yeah. But if it's got Deadpool's personality, and that is what I can't... Now, who knows? Maybe with Joe Kelly writing Deadpool, it'll be a little bit more bearable, because like I said, he made Deadpool interesting, but so many different writers tried to emulate Joe Kelly in the decades since he made Deadpool interesting that I feel they've kind of driven Deadpool into the ground, and now I can't stand reading Deadpool comic books. So, yeah, having a character that has Deadpool's personality does not excite me very much, but we'll see. But yeah, like I am excited to have Hobgoblin as a villain. I don't know. He didn't really put his costume on in these issues.
No.
I don't even really know if you realized that was Hobgoblin, the guy that was kind of directing Itsy Bitsy with the gray goatee.
Caught on, yeah. Yeah, I didn't at first.
Yeah, so Hobgoblin is one of my all-time favorite characters. So I'm happy to see him back doing something. I do like that they seem to be getting a back-to-basics approach by getting to, some of the core villains like Rhino. It was good to see him
Yeah.
back and everything. So yeah, we'll see where it goes. But I have my gripes too. They keep kind of refreshing Spider-Man, and it's getting a little played out. The fact that he's can't hold a job still. He's still kind of the same bumbling goofball. And like when I started reading Spider-Man when I was a little kid, Spider-Man was already graduated university. He was married. He was a mature adult getting on with his life. And they've regressed him back to being a bit of a doofus. And in the first couple of pages of issue 1, you might have been wondering what some of that they were talking about, but they're like, you ran Parker Industries into the ground and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like there was a period in time where Spider-Man was basically Steve Jobs. Like he created Parker Industries, which was this global tech company, and he was like a billionaire.
Right.
And now he's trying to get a job at a lab, like as a low level. So that's why some of these people interviewing him are laughing him out. And it's just like, every time they kind of build Peter up, they always kind of tear him down. And it's like this Arrested Development that I get a little tired of. I want to see him grow as a character.
Yeah.
Same as he can't keep his love life straight. He's currently dating this woman, Shay.
Yeah, that threw me off.
they were serious in the last run, but because he kept missing dates and everything, because she doesn't know he's Spider-Man. That's why now in this current series she's saying like, we're not committed, where she's allowed to date other people because she's already been burned by him. So there's a lot of kind of history there, but like I find it a little frustrating that Peter's still the same dummy. The art's good though, and I'm going to remain hopeful. So there's that.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where it goes. Like I said, like I've never read the Spider-Man comics before, so a lot of it is going to be new and exciting to me. I did recognize like some of the characters from the video games, which I liked. But I didn't go in to the store planning on picking them up. I just went in because I had some free time. I was off on Friday, so I went in and got I normally go Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
Went in on Friday, and I woke up Saturday morning. I thought, well, now what do I do? So got my coffee, went for my drive, went in anyways. I thought, is there anything that's jumping off that I can pick up and might entertain me for the rest of the weekend or something? So so I'll just pick them up and I put them on my account, so they'll keep letting me know when they come in, and I'll just keep getting them until it fizzles out.
And you might be realizing Spider-Man comes out like 3 times a month.
Okay.
It's relentless. And on top of that, then they also put out specials and annuals and all kinds of things. So back when I was going back to when I was a kid, there was multiple Spider-Man books. There was Amazing Spider-Man that came out monthly. Spectacular Spider-Man came out monthly. Web of Spider-Man came out monthly. And a lot of people probably said, I like the art on this one best, or I like the writer on this best, so they could stick to one book. And Marvel seemed to catch on to that. So now they're like, we're just going to put out Amazing Spider-Man 3 times a month, and we're going to rotate artists and stuff. But it makes it hard for a completist, somebody that doesn't want breaks in their run, and it guarantees they get our money 3 times a month.
Yeah.
So
and there's just so many, like you said, there's so many spin-offs, because like there's Spider-Man Predator, then there's the Venom verse or something like that. Also, just
there's a
came
lot,
out.
man. There's a lot.
There's the whole shelf of just the Spider-Man world.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, which ones I can see number 1 for? I'll grab a couple
like
of those.
Miles Morales has his own book, and then the 2 Spider-Man have a book together called The Spectacular Spider-Man.
Yeah.
There's so much. Ever since they introduced that whole Spider-Verse concept, they make miniseries for Spider-Man 2099 and for Spider-Punk and all these different characters. They all have their own universes. It's a lot to keep up with.
Yeah.
So about Spider-Man Predator, what were your thoughts on that?
I liked that as well. I'm curious to see where that's going. It was more violent than I thought it was.
Me too. I was surprised at how violent it was too.
Yeah. I'm not very familiar with Predator, so that was like when it came out. I was too young. My parents let me watch it, and it was just something that I never went back to see.
Yeah.
But it's something that I'm always in the back of my head, like, oh, I should go figure out where that's streaming at and go watch that. And but I did have some of the Predator comics back in the day, because again, the artwork, and like I knew Predator was badass.
Now, have you seen the other Predator movies other than Predator 1?
No.
Okay, because like there's Predator 1 and 2 from the 80s, and then they did Predators next, and then that had Adrian Brody as the main guy, and then there was the 2 Alien versus Predator movies. A year or 2 ago there was Prey. Now there's a new one coming out I think there's 2 new ones coming out. There's like an animated one and a live action one coming out.
I knew there was a live action.
I feel like, am I missing one? I don't know. But there's,
Probably.
I love the Predator.
Yeah.
I don't think they've ever quite achieved, that the first one set a really high bar. I think Prey came pretty close. Like, it was very, very good, I thought. But I found something to like in all of them. And I just love the design of the character.
Yeah.
They've done a couple since, because Dark Horse published those comics you probably read as a kid. Because they always had the rights to those. But Marvel just recently acquired the licensing for these 20th Century Fox characters, so they started doing Alien comic books and Predator comic books. So first they did a couple of miniseries of those books set in their own universes, completely separate from everything else. Yeah. But now they're currently publishing an Aliens versus Avengers comic book. And then they did a Predator versus Wolverine 4-issue miniseries. And then they did a Predator versus Black Panther follow-up miniseries. And now this Predator versus Spider-Man is like the third in the Predator versus Marvel series. And it's kind of set in its own continuity. So it doesn't tie into the regular books. It was also a little confusing for me about like what time it's set, because he still works for the Daily Bugle. But he also, I was unclear, like, I don't know if he's married to Mary Jane in this. It implied they were at least dating, if maybe living together. Which so it would make it seem like this comic is set in like the 80s or 90s. It was surprisingly violent, which doesn't bother me, but it bothered me that Peter acted very out of character and that he didn't seem bothered by it. Like he's literally around people hanging from the ceiling with their skin all hanging off, and he's like, "Oh, gee whiz, the serial killer's at it again." It's like Spider-Man doesn't deal with that type of stuff regularly. He should be really disturbed.
Flustered,
and also like his ethics of, he pretended to be a cop so he could take pictures of the crime scene, and he published the photos in the newspaper, and then the cop reamed him out to say, "We hadn't even notified the families yet.
We're going to sue you."
And like, that seemed very out of character for Spider-Man.
Yeah, that threw me off, because then I almost felt like confused, like, did I read this wrong? Was he the one that was in the hazmat suit or whatever he had on at first?
Because he was taking photos pretending to be like a crime scene photographer. And then the detective turns around and he's gone. And then you find out he was on scene taking those photos. And even J. Jonah Jameson, who is a blowhard, he was like cranked up to 11 in this. Like, he seemed like an extra dickhead. And I'm like, I don't know if I like these versions of these characters that I'm seeing.
And I think there's only 4 issues that are going to come out for this. I believe they told me. So I was like, okay, if it goes off the rails, then at least it's only 4 issues. And like, I started, I got to finish it now.
And I think there's potential in that they introduced Kraven the Hunter. He showed up at the end. And Kraven is kind of like the Predator of the Marvel Universe. So it'll be interesting if this turns into a Kraven versus Predator story. I also wouldn't be surprised if like we start issue 2 and Kraven's skin is hanging off and he's already dead or something.
Maybe,
I don't know. But we'll see. It was a bit of a head scratcher. I don't think Spider-Man is the best character to pair with the Predator.
No.
Like, years ago they did Batman Predator crossovers, and I feel that makes more sense.
Yeah, he's darker.
Yeah, like the Wolverine story was good. I liked that one. The Black Panther one was a little meh. So I was looking forward to Spider-Man Predator, but I thought it would be a weird pairing. And when I read it, I was like, this doesn't really go together very well.
Now, having Kraven go after him, I'm hoping that's the direction they go in, because he was big in the Spider-Man 2 video game, so I am familiar with him. And he definitely has a better vibe to go up against the Predator. He definitely seemed intrigued at the end of that. So maybe Spider-Man's just kind of the introduction, and that's how these 2 characters kind of run off. Spider-Man's just kind of there the whole time.
I don't see Kraven making it to the end of this miniseries, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, that was Comic Book Corner, I guess. That was... but maybe we'll do this again, whether it's in person or maybe we can Skype in and talk, because I do like talking about the current comic books. And by the time Chad catches up to me, these things will be like 2 years old by then. So, but so thanks for the conversation.
Always a pleasure.
All right.
Comic booking.
Okay. So that was my chat with Scott, as well as my review of some of my new toys at the beginning. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry if this episode was a little choppy. But anyway, I'll be back soon with another episode. Will I be alone? Will I be with Scott? Will I be with Chad? I don't know. We'll see. So just make sure you tune in for that. I'll see you then. Make sure you like and subscribe and leave me comments and all that stuff. Thanks for watching.